Hello, 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 hello. Welcome back. Welcome back, welcome back. I do apologize for the delay. We had the power cut out right in the middle of the last live stream, so if it cuts out again, I'm going to wait and not do a live stream today because it will be too unpredictable, but I'll figure out a way to make it up if that happens. So I've already dealt out the cards for Cancer. But I will go ahead and spritz you all with a little bit of this Florida water. As well as talking about the tools that I'll be using this week. I'm going to put my Figa on also. There we go. It's on a nice, heavy silver chain. For the tarot readings this week, I'm doing something a little bit different. It's going to be more guided meditation based, so we're going to be working through the reading while we're doing the reading. So a little bit like path working, guided meditation, and then also the tarot reading itself. So it'll be a little more meditative. I'll be using the Star Spinner Tarot deck. I really enjoy using this deck. It has a magnetic closure. Additionally, for the crystal scrying, I will be using this Unikite crystal. Pam Georgel, the lucky mermaid, was saying that Unikite is good for scrying, so I thought I would try it out. And now we're going to get right into the Cancer reading, because as I mentioned, I've already dealt out the cards. So I'll write down your timestamp. And we can begin. The first card is going to be the very origins of this situation. I'm only dealing out 5 cards because we're going to be much more focused on the storytelling. So the first card that we have here is the King of Swords in the reverse. We have a yellow bird here, possibly a canary. Although I always think that canaries have like slightly stubbier beaks, perhaps. This canary is, of course, wearing a crown, showing that it is the King of Swords, and is encircled in divine white light, depicted here by this continuous ring. We have these beautiful flowers also here in front of the bird. This card showing up in the past lets us know that this particular situation has passed from your immediate sphere of influence. And while, of course, the events of the past do affect the present day, this situation would be something that is resolved. The King of Swords is about discernment of tricky situations. So not just black and white, yes or no type questions, but the why and the how. And for this reason, the King of Swords is also often associated with the Justice card. They are both Libra energy. Libra being about the equanimity between people. So Cancer, your sign is also a cardinal sign like Libra, and both Cancerians and Librans put a heavy emphasis on the reciprocity between individuals. With Libra, the focus is much more on fairness. With Cancer, it's about fairness, but there's a lot more to do with emotional exchange. So equanimity of emotional exchange. Whereas with Libra, even though Libra has a lot to do with relationships and is the ruler of the 7th house, that Libra is more to do with fairness and equanimity. So it would be about the exchange of physical goods, possibly, or energies not related to emotional energy necessarily, but who is getting in touch with whom and for what purpose. So at this time, Cancer, I want you to think all the way back to a situation in your life where you were having to navigate a situation and determine fairness and reciprocity between yourself and another person, perhaps, or between yourself and a particular situation, and determine the weight, determine your place within that environment from a very, very logical standpoint. Because, of course, the King of Swords is heir of air energy. So very, very logical. So Cancer, this time of your life would have been very logical. It would have been a lot of evaluation, but not just the evaluation we might see with the 7 of Pentacles, right? That would be a little bit different. This would be an evaluation of one's place among others. The next card that we have is also showing up in the reverse. So that could be because this card
is associated with your past, but it could also be how fortune was treating you at the time. Do you have the next card coming out? Is the Wheel of Fortune in the reverse
in this deck called the Wheel of Fate.
So this is a Jupiterian card. This card, number 10, comes right after the introspective solitude of the Hermit, and right before either the Strength card or the Justice card. So, chronologically speaking, in relation to this King of Swords, these things could have been happening concurrently. This is about expansion, and it could have been a time when your fortune was changing for the better. And that would have been why you needed to show some finely tuned discernment in order to navigate the path forward in such a way that you would get the best return. Jupiter is...
Oh, hi, Hund. Thank you for coming. It's good to see you today.
Jupiter would be more like a King of Pentacles type energy because of this expansion and wealth. Jupiter is associated with the signs of Sagittarius and sometimes Pisces. So could also be considered King of Wands.
Sorry about that.
The King of Wands energy, then, this being very good to navigate. It's not the Moon card. The Moon card would have been something very tricky, something where things were hidden. The Wheel of Fortune is more about a world of possibility available to you. Intricacy, however, is showing up a lot in this reading so far, Cancer. Let's continue to move forward. This next card is going to kind of represent the present in this situation. And just as here on the Wheel of Fortune, we have the 4 suits of the tarot depicted in the corners of the card. The 4 corners represented. Here we have these 4 sprites, also embodying that energy here on the World card. The World card is an evolution of the Wheel of Fortune. Now, showing up in the upright, it is a completion, and it might be a completion of the beginning that we see here with the Wheel of Fortune. That now these things are starting to come all the way around. You're starting to see the result. The world could be seen as very fertile, but not necessarily. The world is taking these things from up in the air and bringing them down and making them concrete here on the physical plane. Now, I do want to mention that we just had a new moon back on Friday, and that new moon was the beginning of the new astrological cycle. I'm not sure who this person is or why they're targeting me, but I will have deleted all of these messages, but I do have somebody showing up and spamming my chat, so we'll see what happens. Not to distract from the reading, of course. Let's see, wonder if I can turn off the chat. Sorry about this. It's so irritating to have to do this. There we go. I'll just turn off the chat. Sorry, guys. If you want to leave nice comments on the replay, you absolutely can. And of course, I always love to hear from you through email as well. So whatever the cycle was here in the past, in the current situation, you are seeing that coming into full fruition, Cancer. Let's look at the next card. Here we have the 10 of Wands. The 10 of Wands can be about burdens. You can see that this person here has worked very hard to grow up this garden of wands, vines, but they look kind of down. So, forward into the future, Cancer, what are some ways that you can keep your spirits high? We already know that you have capacity for this kind of very logical discernment, to see all sides of a situation and be able to evaluate them logically. We do have the 10, the Wheel of Fortune, Jupiterian expansion. So we do see the result of that expansion here with all of these vines growing. But perhaps they have grown to a point where they have escaped your capability somewhat. Such is the nature of expansion, that we do get to a point in our lives where sometimes the growth exceeds our capability. We either end up growing with that, or we will have to let some things go in order to maintain that balance in our lives. We do have this completion also.
And I just want to let you guys know, I do apologize. I love hearing from you, but I had to turn the chat off because I don't have a moderator here with me today.
So what could be going on in this completion to create these burdens for you in the future, Cancer? Completion, in this case, with the World card in the upright, this would be a good thing. This would be a positive completion. This is a very Saturnian card, though, and Saturn is very slow moving. It is associated with earth elemental energy. So we're bringing the concrete down into the physical plane, which can create delays. The wands are a suit of fire, and the fire desires to move. We have Saturn energy in this card as well. This would be Saturn in Sagittarius with the Ten of Wands. So what creates the burden is that slow-moving Saturnian energy holding back that very mutable fire energy of Sagittarius and that desire to be able to move freely. Remember, things like long-distance travel, things like higher education. So there may be some delays coming in for things like that. And finally, here in the future, we have the King of Chalices. And this King of Chalices is going to be you far off into the future, Cancer. So we already had this King of Swords energy. And moving into the future, now we're going to be opening ourselves up emotionally again with the King of Chalices. This is someone who is a provider. This is someone with great love and compassion for others. Can be a paternal figure, an uncle perhaps. Doesn't have to be a masculine person, but it is an active energy. This would be a balance of air and water elemental energies. With great power does come, of course, great responsibility. It is possible that because of this new responsibility of caring for others, actively nurturing them, Cancer, that you then are presented with more irons in the fire here with this Ten of Wands. So we're going to work on a balancing exercise for you today, Cancer. We're going to move some of those energies around. So rather than keeping all 10 irons in the fire at once, we're going to be gently removing some of those responsibilities.
want you to gently close your eyes, if you would, for me. Breathe gently. And I want to imagine all of your responsibilities lined up. Line them up. Imagine them standing like so many spears propped against a blank white wall. Okay? Maybe one of those spears is your bills. Maybe one of those spears is love and care for a sick relative, right? Maybe one of those spears is work responsibilities. Now you might hear the spears kind of shifting on the wall. Some of them might fall. They might clatter to the ground. Some of them might, as they fall, knock over others. That's quite all right. Quite all right. What we're going to do is install some brackets on the wall. I don't know how many of you also watch the shorts where they do little tool time demonstrations. I wanted to say displays, but it's demonstrations. And they'll take a PVC pipe and they'll cut part of it out and then they'll screw it into the wall. So I find those actually very soothing. So what we're going to do is for each one of those spears that you have stacked against the wall, don't worry about them if they clatter and fall to the ground, Cancer. We're going to take these special brackets to hold them upright. And we're going to first drill a hole, right? Gently drill into the drywall of this plain, blank, white wall. And we're going to install the drywall anchors, just like this. And then we're going to take that bracket and we're going to install the screws that hold that bracket in place. And then we're going to place each spear in its own upright bracket on the wall to make it more manageable. So we got the first one done. Let's work on the second one. Get everything lined up. And we're going to drill the 2 pilot holes. We're going to install our drywall anchors. We're going to hold the bracket in place and screw it into the wall. And then hang the second spear. And now both of those spears are taken care of. They are both secure and stable. And we're going to do the next one, the third one, and place that spear. And the fourth one. And I promise you, I am replicating exactly the procedure for each one of these. However, because of time allotment, I won't be showing you the whole process here. But now the fourth one is installed. Now we pick up the 5th spear. And now that one can hang directly on the wall. 7th, and 8th together. And each one has its own bracket on this blank white wall. And finally, the 9th spear is put into place. And the 10th spear. And thus, all 10 of your wands, now Cancer, are perfectly secure. So that is going to conclude the Cancer reading for today. I do apologize, I had to turn off the chat because somebody was being difficult and I didn't have a moderator here with me. I am going to go over to the member side of the channel after this and do the crystal scrying. So if you are interested in that, you are cordially invited to join us there. So next I'm going to move on to the sign of Scorpio. And actually, you know what? I try really hard to cultivate a good atmosphere here, but I would much rather hear from some of you guys than none of you at all. So I'm just going to turn the chat back on. And if that person shows up, I will ignore them. Oh, here we go. Okay. Custom duration. 1 day. Okay. Great. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, perfect. So now you have to have been subscribed to my channel for a full day before you can comment. Because most of you have been long-term subscribers anyway. We're going to move on to the sign of Scorpio. Scorpio, Scorpio, Scorpio. And Scorpio, if you would like, go ahead and take some nice deep breaths. And allow any questions that you have to rise up to the forefront of your thoughts. We are doing something a little bit different this week, where I'm going to help any energies that come up in the reading. We'll just be doing a 5-card reading. And any energies that come up, I am going to help you transmute them with a guided meditation. So just allow any concerns or thoughts that you have to rise up to the forefront of your thoughts. And I will deal out the cards. Very good cards so far. Very good, very good. So, Scorpio. Let me write down your timestamp. The first card that I have for you this week, Scorpio, is the Two of Swords. And if you see, these two figures have their heads bowed. This is an air sign energy card. Can be very similar to the Lover's card in regards to choice. So we have this person with the sword here. We have another person with the sword here. And both of them have their heads bowed and their eyes might be closed or they might be looking down. So not observing what is around, rather keeping the mind in a state of meditation or concentration. In the background, we have allusions to the moon card with the crescent of the moon back here. And we have imagery related to the divine white light of source. This infinite ring kind of represents that light. So the light of the moon is not a very bright illumination. And in fact, Scorpio, this might be a choice that you make not just once, but that you make every day. Could be a choice that you have to make regularly. Would be a choice between two paths. And those two paths might be fairly equally weighted, such that going one way will have one result, but that it will probably be just as satisfactory to you as its counterpart. That does not, of course, mean that the two options are interchangeable, Scorpio. So you will be able to make this choice. But you might not see all of the future repercussions of it. Following the Two of Swords, we have the Chariot card. So I want you to be thinking about that choice that you have to make regularly. This would be something that you've been making, a choice that you've been making for some time, for a lot of your life. Here on the Chariot, we have the echo of that choice presented here in the two cats that we see on the prow of this vessel, on the dashboard, so to speak, of the Chariot. There is a lot of mobility here, movement and victory, no matter which path you choose. Because again, just as on this Two of Swords, we have these two cats. They're looking in opposite directions. So neither one of the cats is the true path of the vessel. Rather, the middle ground is taken. So now we get introduced to the possibility of this third choice. There is a lot in the Chariot about duality, also about reciprocity, because of its association with water sign Cancer.
So you might be dealing with a Cancer, but that's not necessarily the case here. I want you to think now of this situation in your life, Scorpio, where you have a choice of two paths, both of which assure victory. The next card that we have here is the Seven of Coins. The Seven of Coins. Seven of Coins. So this card, no, this is the Six of Coins. I apologize. My eyes do deceive me. We do have 6 coins here on the card. We have 6 berries here on the vine. Beautiful, bright red strawberries. And I really, really love that imagery, as a matter of fact, of the strawberries. Very ripe, juicy, and delicious. Ready to be picked. Ready to be picked. This figure also has this broom in their grasp, which might also be an implication of mobility if you see the broom as an alternative form of transportation. Brooms can be used to bring luck into the home or sweep out the bad. The Six of Coins is about abundance. This is not the level of abundance that we would see with the Nine of Pentacles, but is enough to share with others. And in fact, this person might be harvesting these strawberries to make a batch of jam, to make a pie perhaps, or to make some delicious tarts. Delicious tarts, delicious tarts. Now that you have reached a certain level of this victory, you have abundance that you may share with others. We have taking a step back too, implied here by the Chariot, which is a lot of movement forward and is the 7th card of the major arcana. Once we have that victory, then one can step back and enjoy this 6 of Pentacles abundance with one's friends or loved ones. So I want you to think now, Scorpio, about a time that you have been able to share recently with a small group, maybe even a large group of loved ones, people who are very near and dear to you, and who are very supportive of your choices and your victories. So the next card that I have for you, Scorpio, is going to be moving us forward, and it's going to be taking us a little bit further into the future. The card that we have here is the Knight of Wands in the reverse. This card is fire of fire energy. And the figure on this card is surrounded by the divine white light of Source. That is somewhat common to the cards in this deck. We see it here on the chariot, the entire chariot engulfed in the divine white light of Source. We have here on the Six of Pentacles, this person also has an abundance of that divine energy. Here you can see that they have drawn the divine white light of Source down, as I mention often, through the crown of the head. And as they draw it down into their body, you can see that it is being transmuted by the motifs depicted here in the back of those little green and yellow triangles. So, of course, with this attainment of victory and resources, you also, Scorpio, are performing a transmutation of manifestation. That fire can only burn so hot for so long. Now, the Knight of Wands is fire of fire energy. And indeed, we see these rings, these demarcation zones multiplied until we reach almost like a bubble. Not just the one glowing bubble, but several interweaving with each other. Glowing hot, fiery, fiery hot energy. Now, for a water sign and a fixed water sign such as yourself, Scorpio, it would be interesting to see what other energies are in your chart. Because, of course, water has a tendency to put out fires, but in this case, we see them multiplying and growing. And this card being in your immediate future might be something that you don't see yet, or that has not fully manifested yet. And it might depend on what you are putting 3 of these coins into. Holding on to 3, investing 3, and putting 3 into something else. That might be what creates this spark. This could be everything taking off and becoming vast. It could be a period of great busyness and activity for you as well. The final card that I have for your reading, and then we're going to go into a very short guided meditation for you, Scorpio, to help you with the transmutation of these energies. We have the Page of Swords. The Page of Swords is earth of air energy. Very grounded, but also very intellectually stimulated. Someone who is seeking out new information, possibly new guidance, new ideas, exposing themselves to different thoughts, to create new patterns, to create inspiration perhaps to get a new job, perhaps to improve one's craft, perhaps just watching tool videos and how-to videos on YouTube. So these being our future energies, perhaps we don't know where this energy is going to come from with the Knight of Wands. It could even be a spark of divine inspiration as to how to invest the abundance that you've attained through this victory. So going back to the very beginning, remember we had this choice. So this Page of Wands might be learning new things all the time about whatever this choice represents. Because remember, I was saying that the choice being in the upright in the past possibly depicts a binary choice that you must make on a regular basis.
Oh, thank you, Kayla's lovely. And thank you for coming. It's so good to see you today. This is the Star Spinner Tarot deck, and I love it very much. It's very gender, ethnicity, and body type inclusive.
So now, what we're going to do is start to draw down this energy and from it generate the knowledge we require here with the Page of Swords. So
that divine white light coming down, I want you to envision it as tiny little threads and filaments streaming out of light. You could even envision them as little lasers, if that helps you picture it more vividly. Like the end of a fiber optic cable. Hi, Super Queen Bee. Yes, I had a delay today because the power went out right as I started the video. And so I had to wait for my router and everything to reset. But it's very good to see you, and I do apologize for the delay.
each one of these little fiber optic cables is going to transmit to you divine information. So we see each one of these choices that you make as a binary choice. But every time you make this binary choice, it is multiplied. And as I mentioned, the Chariot implies a third option, such that the only way forward is through. So you could divide all of these fiber optic cables into their red, green, and blue components. Red, green, and blue, as they would do on a cathode ray monitor. You might even envision the 3 little strands of red, green, and blue fiber optic cable intertwining and braiding with each other to keep the signal consistent. If you get the wires crossed, part of the signal will look like this, and another part of the signal will be a completely different image, right? So I'm not saying not to cross the wires, but you will end up with 3 different images that don't make the same image overlapped on top of each other.
that is from whence our new ideas might come. So just imagine these filaments. You can imagine them entering your thoughts, entering your mind. You could imagine them coming directly through your forehead into your pineal gland. You could imagine them floating around up here in your cerebrum. Each one of these fiber optic cables is going to carry to you a piece of information, Scorpio, a piece of knowledge, another puzzle piece to complete the puzzle. Every time you place a piece, you must determine, does it fit or does it not fit? Oh, I'm sorry to hear that. I hate when I have connectivity issues. It can be very frustrating. And perhaps as we do this guided meditation, it will manifest solutions to mundane connectivity issues as well. But know that as you pull out each red, green, and blue filament, and possibly recombine certain ones to get interesting glitchy effects, that the new ideas with which you are blessed by Source will carry you forward further. And lead to even more abundance. So that is going to conclude the Scorpio reading for this week. I will be going after the completion of this live stream and doing the crystal scrying with this beautiful piece of unakite. Pam Georgel, the Lucky Mermaid, recommends unakite for scrying, so I wanted to give it a try myself. And now we're going to move on to the sign of Pisces. So Pisces, if you would, take some deep, relaxing breaths. Allow yourself to settle in to whatever questions you would like answered over the course of the reading, and whatever energies you wish to transmute in your life right now through the guided meditation. This week, I am doing something slightly different. Which is that we will be using the tarot reading as a way of reading the energies. And then we will do a path-working type guided meditation very briefly at the end to transmute those energies. Oh wow, Pisces, there's a lot going on here. Oh wow, okay. Pisces, we have a really strong reading for you today. I'm only doing 5 cards, but 2 of those are major arcana. Three of those are major arcana, and the other two are swords. Okay, Kayla's lovely. I'm glad to hear that. I like to mix it up a little bit so that I'm not just saying the same things to you week after week. I will write down the Pisces timestamp. Pisces, the first card that I have in your reading here today is the Fool. And the Fool is showing up in the reverse. This would be possibly pretty far into the past, but it would certainly be something that has resolved. The Fool, you can see, is holding this white flower, depicting the purity of their spirit. They have here this little knapsack tied on a pole to carry over their shoulder. The implication being that they carry very little baggage with them wherever they go. We have several nested rings here, depicting the divine white light of Source. So because this inner ring is close around the Fool, we see that connection, because of the Fool's purity, is still very strong. The communion with Source in this individual is much like when we were small and we were still able to see things and know things that perhaps others who had more context for the world around them did not perceive the same way. So, Pisces, I do want you to think back to a period of time in your life. It could have been a time of starting over. It could have been a time of striking out on your own without a lot of preconceived notions. Remember, one of the keys of the Fool's energy is the idea that the amount of baggage, preconceived notions, or context that the Fool carries with them is very minimal. Looking at things with very fresh eyes and a very fresh heart. The next card that we have in your reading today, Pisces, is the Death card. On the Death card, we have these poppies, which are representative of remembrance for the deceased. In contrast to the beautiful white flower depicted here on the Fool card, this would be purity of spirit. And these poppies would represent the heart being tainted by the sadness that comes with loss. We do still have this idea of renewal here. So while the Fool is the beginning of the first cycle, the Death card then
is a transformative point that marks the beginning of a new cycle. This one still informed by this simplicity of spirit, but also enriched by having had or loved or known, and then having to let go of that. The death card can be about physical death, the death of a loved one, the death of a situation, but the death card can also be about transformation. The loss is the things that have to be left behind when things change. So Pisces, that Fool card is in the reverse, but the Death card is showing up in the upright. So this could have been a transformation that took place very recently. Because here in the current situation for you, Pisces, we do have the 10 of Swords. As I mentioned, there are two very difficult swords in your reading today, Pisces. So I might go ahead and deal with them both at once, because this one is in the current situation and the next one is in the immediate future. And they are both upright. We have the 10 of Swords, this extreme feeling of loss. And then we have the 3 of Swords, which is about emotional wounding. Now, something about this 10 of Swords that is very interesting is that on most of the cards, we have this ring around the figure, showing that link to source, that divine spark. Here on the 10 of Swords, we don't have that. This is just an empty cup, pierced through and through by steel. Whatever was once here has already gone. And in fact, we might see it as this little star up here in the sky, fading gently into the background. It does look for you at this time, Pisces, like there is a big ending and transformation going on in your life. There could even be a departure from a situation. And this looks like something which is very painful for you. So I am very sorry to hear that, Pisces. And of course, these are general readings. So this particular situation may or may not resonate with you at this time. This 3 of Swords can be about conflict. We do see these storm clouds congregated behind the heart, pierced again by these 3 swords. But we do still see that divine ring of source, such that all is not lost in this case. It will take you some time to heal your spirit. But the final card that I have for you in this reading, Pisces, is really going to tie it all together. And hope that it will bring you hope and solace for the future. And that card is the Justice card. Now, the Justice card is associated with the sign of Libra. We do have air sign energy with the sword here. We have this avenging angel. So after all of these swords have been thrown, all of this pain, all of this anguish, Pisces, we do have justice coming through for you in the upright, bringing not just the divine spark of this being themselves, but aid, divine aid, encircling their energies as well. So, Scorpio, I will pull out your card here. This is an interesting amalgamation of energies. We see the ending of one cycle and the beginning of a new one. We see these butterflies going through a metamorphosis. I just said Scorpio. I apologize. This is the Pisces reading. This is Scorpio's card, though. So, scorpionic energies, very present for you at this time. I'm not sure how many of you also have Scorpio in your chart. That is a lot of water energy. But, Pisces, we are going to look at softening the blow. We're going to look at ways to maneuver through this transition to make it not easier, not necessarily that we don't want to feel any pain whatsoever, but easing the understanding, easing the fear of uncertainty. Pisces is a mutable water sign, and therefore very capable of adjusting to change. We have 13 swords here, and the Death card is card number 13. Some people consider 13 to be an unlucky number. I don't know how many of you are also seamstresses or tailors or who like to sew or take part in textile and fashion design. It's something that I have had a passion for a lot of my life. Those of you familiar with textile arts maybe also recognize the little red tomatoes that have a strawberry at the end of the stem with pumice inside to sharpen your needles and pins. I want you to imagine in your hands, it's soft, but with a bit of a coarse texture to the red fabric. It's not very soft. It's somewhat firm. And there's a little green felt stem cut out on the top. This pincushion, Pisces, represents your heart. And piercing your heart
pieces of fabric. There are also pins that have little pearls on the top of the pin, and sometimes those little beads can get dislodged, and then the pin will have no top at all. What cares? What pains in your heart do these 13 pins represent, Pisces? Gently, 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 one by one, we're going to pull these pins out. So gently grasp, use your nails to pull it out if you need to. Gently grasp the first pin, and as you pull that pin out of the pin cushion, feel that sliver of pain dislodge from your heart. And then we're always going to use our proper pin safety. We're not going to just set the pin down, we're going to put it in the little plastic box with all the other pins. So now we're down to 12 pins, Pisces. We're going to pull out the next pin. And as we pull out that pin and put it in the box, again, you're going to feel a sliver of pain dislodge from your heart. And the next pin, the third pin. And again, the fourth. And the fifth. And with each of these pins, your emotional burden will become less painful. And the sixth. And the seventh. And the eighth. And we're going to pause here because it is genuinely important to grieve our loss. We are going to recognize this transformation as what it is, an opportunity to move forward for each and every one of us. And then we will continue with the 9th, the 10th, and now we only have 3 pins left, Pisces. 1, 2, and 3. Now, I certainly would not imply that by doing this exercise, every sliver of emotional pain you have ever felt will go away. But I do hope that it helps. Thank you, thank you, thank you to everyone who joined me today. I'm going to go over now to the members side of the channel and do the crystal scrying with this beautiful piece of unakite. So if that appeals to you or sounds interesting, you are cordially invited. But your presence here on the channel is appreciated in whatever form it takes. Yes, even the jerks, the trolls, and the troglodytes. super queen bee. And much love and light to you as well. I will see you again very,